Click hole. A violation occurred after team warp early this morning. The fire reportedly moved swimmers, got out of the pool, grabbed their towels, and started racing to the locker room. "Where's the fire?" said the Olympic assistant coach.
Where's the fire?
When they kept running away, the U.S. Olympic Committee was forced to take decisive action. There's no horseplay allowed in the pool area. It includes running.
That's true. We've known that forever. All right, so we did a Q&A yesterday up on Instagrams and got a lot of questions that we're going to run through a bunch of them.
Where do I get to sit?
You're over here.
It's bright.
It is bright, right?
Stupid light.
And so we're going to run through a bunch of these questions and answer as many as we can. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of repeats.
Can you even see anything?
Blast them. You can see those are good. Yeah, I'm good here. I have eyes. I see. I pilot. I fly.
All right, let's go. I think one of the questions was, would you want to fight 1,000...
It's the chicken or duck thing. Chicken or horse?
Horse-sized chickens. No.
1,000 chicken-sized horses.
Or one...
1,000? I don't have the cardio for that.
Well,
either way.
I think that was really what I pointed back to him. Was like, or the finished idea, or one chicken, horse-sized chicken. So that'd be a big chicken. It really comes down to, are you feel like you're a strength power athlete with good skills?
Yeah, I don't think I...
Well, or do you think you have the cardio?
This is a bare hand fight. I mean, that thing's got a beak. I don't get a knife. What if I always carry a knife? I mean,
I didn't say that. I just think it's. I mean, you could have a knife. I don't know. I remember that guy in Jurassic Park 2 being overrun by those compies. It scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, that's no good. That's a tough battle. Any way you slice it.
I mean, just having 2 daughters, sometimes I feel overwhelmed. I live in a house full of like 3 people, 3 women.
Yeah.
1,000.
1,000 horses.
All right, hit us. What we got for questions?
Yeah, your question got skipped because you don't know when stuff's going to get restocked in my store. What's generally an effective way to increase hamstring mobility for deadlifting? These are going to be a lot of really basic questions.
Well, let's be honest. So the first and foremost is, I think one of the things we need to ask is, why do you think your hamstrings are short in the first place? What makes you think they're short? So your inability to get to the bottom of the deadlift has nothing to do with your hamstrings. Has everything to do, for me, has everything to do with how tight your hips are. Because, here's why. If you're missing hip flexion, you can't bring your knees to your chest. And most men are running about less than 90 degrees. Boom,
it's not a hamstring issue.
That's right. And you also have knees. So when you set up for that, look at how, Bolton is still my favorite deadlifter.
Yeah.
And look at how he sets up. Prioritizes his spine at the top, loads his hip, right, which is puts the big load into the glute, into the hamstring, and then he uses his knees to adjust for position and tension. So if you have really, really short hamstrings, your knees are just going to be way the hell over the bar. And if you can't get to the bar, your knees are just going to be forward. If you've got enough hamstring range, often that means that you can start playing. I still like Mark Bell's deadlift technique of just having a little bit of knee forward. So
right.
That when you start pulling, you're already into, you got your quads on. You're not shooting your butt looking for tension. I think the real issue that we see is that when people are unstable on the spine, and a lot of people initiate or get overextended, then hamstrings get tight as a neuromechanical compromise. And we've done this a lot on the site, where we get people, have them do an active straight leg raise, and then, or even look at the range of their hamstrings. They look like they have 50% range. Then we have them just stabilize and sequence pelvis to lumbar and stabilize a little bit, and all that neural tension goes out. So what looks like short hamstrings is often just a neuromechanical protective device, which is the reason I think people are tearing their hamstrings when they sprint. They're sprinting, they get overextended, the nervous system tries to protect itself, keep the musculature from going end range to protect the nervous system,
right.
And then you just put tension in the system under high speed.
So the issue being probably in your hip mobility, where the actually ball ties into the socket of the hip. I've got some older videos on my site. I know you've got a ton, but doing something like the banded distraction, putting the femur back in place so that you're getting back to that range of motion. Most likely you're spending time sitting down. We all do.
And that's the other piece. Is we have to look at where you're spending your time. There's this thing in physical therapy called a biopsychosocial model of dysfunction. And it means if we're not looking at the other 23 hours of the day, we're missing,
that's something I've recently tried to explain to a lot of people, and it's one thing that the body is really, really amazing to, is at adapting to stimulus. And whether that stimulus is going to be your diet is really on point all the time, your body will adapt to that because it knows what we're going to get fed. Or if I spend 15 hours a day sitting, my body is going to build itself to be very comfortable at sitting.
That's right.
And it will be really bad at everything else because I'm asking it to sit 16 hours a day.
You said we don't ever stretch hamstrings. We will turn hamstrings to their normal length, right, which may have been short. Also, there is stiffness back there. I mean, these hamstrings work hard. I mean, if you swing a kettlebell or you deadlift, you clean. I mean, your hamstrings are working their butts off. And
right.
And oftentimes dealing with it with stiffness. We do that in monkey bars of death. Let's free up the stiffness, the intramuscular, intrafascial stiffness. Let's make sure you're sequencing correctly. And rarely do we get it so someone can't get to the bottom of the deadlift. That's ridiculous. And if you're reversing, it's not your hamstrings.
There you go. All right, so we're going to shoot down and see what we can find.
Jupiter's freaking out. How's this coffee?
It's delicious. That's Laird coffee.
It's the instant fuel.
Yeah, it's
I know.
pretty sweet. How to mobilize, unstick the SI joint. Apparently we're going to get a lot of mobility questions and less how to drink and hang out questions from me.
Well, and that's really what people need help with, how to drink and hang out questions. Look, the SI joint, what we're looking at is how your sacrum basically reacts and moves around through pelvis. One of the things that Louis Simmons figured out a long time ago, reverse hyper motion, right, got the sacrum to move in plane with the pelvis. Right, and so one of the things that happens is being able to squat all the way down and just relax in the bottom position basically unjams your pelvis. So one of the ways to restore range of motion to that SI, sacroiliac joint, is to get the sacrum to go in the same direction of the pelvis. When we're exercising, we're basically jamming them so that they become rock stable, right? But the idea here is, hey, I need to have some full range of motion to restore that normal kind of movement so that I'm not constantly jammed. The second thing is that usually when I see SI lit up and people are like, oh, that's my SI, what we see is that's an overextension problem. So what I'm talking about is if you initiate your squat and you squeeze your butt and organize rib cage down, you brace and arch hard, there should be no change in your position. But what people do is they want to keep their torso upright and they stick their butt back.
Right, it's a different arch. That's not the arching.
That's not arching.
It's not that sway back stripper look that everyone's looking for.
There's a time and a place for that, right? But that's not under heavy load. And what ends up happening is not only is that a problem, because now we've just irritated the joints, we put it into overextension. That overextension sequela, or the sets of problems around that overextension, leads to tonicity, high tone, activation, guarding of psoas, iliacus, QL, which means that you're constantly just being jammed more and more forward. So it feels like you're always stuck. Obviously some gut smashing. You can turn that off.
The front.
Yeah, I would attack from the front. I get into the iliacus, but the real issue here is, one, you're not spending time just ass to ankle. It's one of the reasons we like to. If you hang out with me, I squat.
Yeah.
I just hang out in the bottom.
Makes me super jealous.
It's something that I got to do so that when I go to stand up, everything works well. Yeah, right. And the second thing is, it really is a movement-related problem. So if your SI is lit up, for me, I'm like, hey, you're overextension driven, and that means swinging a kettlebell overextended, handstand push-ups overextended. You're flopping around on the pull-up bar overextended. Right. There's a lot of overextended motions. Even sitting, in order to keep an upright torso, psoas drags. Now I'm overextended again.
Right, because you'll get comfortable to where something will lock, but the psoas is locked in. I think there's a lot of truth to that too. I learned a long time ago that anytime I was having some issues like low back pain or any of that type of stuff, the first thing I started doing in my workouts was more abs, and that seemed to alleviate any of the issues that I was having on the backside.
Yeah, and I'm not even talking about the training pieces, but I completely agree. I think that that is an absolute truism. Every day is not leg day. Every day is back day.
Yeah,
that's how you should be thinking. Your nervous system is the limiting factor to your performance, aka your spine.
I've been thinking about getting a new one of those.
Even know.
Yeah.
Get you using. I get you a spot by 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock? I can get it painted. I can get you a toe.
Cut off a toe.
All right.
Pick some blanket.
Here's a different one. For squats, if you're not a power lifter, is it recommended to cut depth while training it, or should I be trying to go as low as possible while still bracing hard?
Low as possible. What does that mean? Like that Chinese girl in the Olympics with her ischial tuberosities on the ground? Did you see her in that W sit?
Crazy. Oh my God. I would shear off. There'd be just femur parts.
I don't even know how your toe works. All right, so what's the question about train depth? This is a good one for you.
Yeah, so, is it okay? Basically what he's asking, does he have to bury squats ass to grass every time he squats, or can he train to some different depths? Personally, this depends on your sport. If you're not a power lifter, what is the purpose of you squatting? It is to make stronger legs, stronger back, stronger core. And if I recommend stay in a pain-free range. mean, not that you shouldn't push yourself, but that's
Free.
what I do. I stay in a range that doesn't aggravate my knee right now, and that tends to be a little bit above parallel. Now, if the time comes that I need to test it and I'm going to push it, I can. I can hit parallel, but I'll pay for it. But is this something I need to put in the hundreds of reps during the week to do? No.
The other thing I would say about that's an important distinction, is that also I want to maintain your mechanics. So where's the bar? Is it on your back? Is it on your front? Right? Is it over your head? Are you, you're using a safety squat bar? I mean, the implications of upright torso also mean that it's going to change kind of demands of the knee and the hip, right? And so, one of the things is that, being able to back squat, and even if you move that bar down a little bit off of your neck onto the
traps,
onto the traps where
it should be.
Well, during back squatting, right? It's not a.
I like a high mid neck squat.
Mid-neck squat. I'm a mid-necker.
I like to tuck my chin.
The idea of putting it on your high is that you're just moving the stimulus, so you have to have an upright torso, right? And moving the bar down means I can let my torso come forward a little bit,
right,
which means that maybe I can have a better squat stimulus to get to better depth without challenging my range of motion. So what we're always saying is, hey, let's squat in a variety, right? And
sure.
When Jesse's programming for me, he'd be like, all right, we're taking it out of the chains.
Yeah.
From the bottom, narrow stance. We'd be like, Jesse. And we looked really weak those days, right?
Yeah.
And then some days he'd be like, we're squatting above parallel, really high, wide stance. And
the truth is, if you're strong, whether you're wide, you're narrow, chains, different bars, you're going to be strong.
But the goal is, my mechanics, I don't reverse my spine. I'm not all sloppy. My knees aren't all wobbly. So, if you're going to Olympic lift and you're snatching and clean jerking, you're going to get stapled.
Yep.
I mean, that's the nature of those heavy, 89, 85 plus loads. You're going to end up squatting all the way down. Even watching the kids squat, front squat, the good Olympic lifters, they get hip crease below the knee, and that's deep.
Yep.
When your torso is upright because your knees are going forward.
Right.
So, I think everyone should have enough range of motion to box squat with a vertical shin to at least parallel.
Right.
That is a baseline of range of motion function. But squat in ranges that respect your mechanics, know that that's a moving target. You get off an airplane, out of a competition, man, not everything's working right.
Right. I mean, but that's kind of that idea that, man, that 90%, like as an athlete who's trained a long time, that 90% of your lift, I feel like 90% is something I can hit any day of the week. Tired, sick, sad, whatever. I can hit that number. But that 90% for me, that number floats. I know what 90% effort feels like now.
That's right.
And that effort is something that you get after years of training. And, I could go in the gym right now without having to put weight on the bar and tell you what 75% is going to feel like.
That's right. And I think the point is that, we should be thinking, why are we squatting? And if part of my training plan, if you're only squatting high, good luck when you end up getting stapled. Right?
Right. But for the same thing, for me as a thrower, right? I'm never getting almost below a quarter squat at any point during any of my
But you squat pretty deep.
I squat deep enough.
That's right. I think one of the things that, you'll talk to Mark Bell about or Jesse about, is they'll say, hey, look, there should be no, if you're squatting a powerlifting competition, there should be no doubt what parallel is. And if you're always flirting with that, you're gonna miss lifts because you're not deep enough. So always there should be no doubt in your squatting why you're squatting and going deep enough.
Right.
Pain free, good mechanics. Squat them as you got them. As it moves and changes, take advantage.
That's
goblet squat yourself. Ass to
why
grass.
not?
How many people have you seen doing tempo goblet squats destroy their back?
Right. Because you can't.
You can't.
The fuse is somewhere else. You'll drop it before you injure something else. Physician's assistant says, potential disc bulge, L5S1 or piriformis, only to have x-ray, no MRI. PT is too expensive to pay out of pocket. Any suggestions at home? Sitting in car rides stiffen me up and are painful. Workout 2-3 times a week. I don't want injuries. I don't want injury to stop that.
Here's what I'll say around the disc piece. And this is important. If the research is that every 20-year-old has discopathy. Everyone. Every 30-year-old, discopathy. It means you've got degenerative disc heights. God forbid you ever turn 40 because you're going to see degenerative changes in your spine. Why? Because you played high school football, right? And you sat and you did a bunch of crazy stuff, playing pong, drunk.
Yeah.
The point is that, we don't expect, always that degenerative changes around the spine mean that they're going to cause pain. And when we get an MRI, and you should not get an MRI if you have back pain, right? Because you're going to play a game we call Hunt the Lesion, which is, oh, it must be that. That's what it is. And what control you have over that. So there's a lot of things that are pain generators around the spine. Even the connective tissue of the low back can be a pain generator, right? You can just be under tension. You can be irritated facet, right? I mean, there's a whole lot of things. I mean, if you're really stiff because you're overextended or have poor spinal mechanics, the nerve can get pulled onto a disc or through a little compromised tunnel because you're overextended all the time. So is that a disc bulge or stenosis problem or a nerve pulling on the system problem? Here's the bottom line, is that there's a lot you can do to improve the health of how your nervous system functions. Mobilizing your thoracic spine frees up a lot of slack downstream for your nerves to move, right?
And it's interesting, trying to explain that to normal people is that, so you've got your basically spinal column, let's just say it's this movable piece of conduit, and then all your electric wires for your nerves run through it. And they run through these really tiny cavities, and so anytime you have inflammation or things get shifted and one's grabbing and pushing or things get stiff, this nerve and conduit, now this electrical wire is pulling away from the socket or anything else that's downstream, instead of what it should do is all slide up and down near each other.
That's right. So if you're missing hip range of motion, for example, you go to bend your hip, the hip suddenly, because it doesn't move independently and well and freely, it ends up as a mechanical tensioner. And now you wind up on the connective tissue, further tensioning the nervous system. If you're sitting all the time, we believe that you have pain sitting. Like, that's called sensitization. Your brain is basically getting clever enough to say, I know what's happening here. You're in the shape that causes discomfort, and your brain will start to recognize patterns and positions, and you get what we call an echo of pain, right? But the real issue is, I guarantee you, if I couch stretched you, if I looked at your quads, if I looked at your internal rotation of your hip, I looked at your hip flexion, I looked at your ability to extend your hip, I looked at when's the last time you ever took a plate and just addressed your obliques? Ugh. I mean, what you're going to find is that there are so many kind of red flag, low pieces of fruit.
Right.
Clear those things off the table, right? Develop a breathing practice, move well. And then if you can't get out of it, then let's go get a picture of your MRI. But the bottom line is, for non-specific low back pain, there's enough resources, even on Mobility Watt alone, to have a start on that. You don't necessarily need a physio. If you can't fix it, go make a one-time appointment with the physio. Right? Even check MWAD list on our site. Find a physio. You just need to go see someone and say, hey, I need some help with some ideas. I can't afford to see you much. Help me out.
Right. And it's so many people, I mean, the truth is, right, if you've been an athlete, and chances are if you're following me asking questions, you've done something physical with your life. And if you have, and now you're 30 years old, like, MRIs aren't going to be real pretty. You've done some mean shit to yourself. You spent time learning how to lift.
It still doesn't tell you how to deal with it. You know what? Stop squatting, stop moving. Look,
there's no answer to that.
Disuse is catabolic, period. Use your spine or lose your spine.
Yep.
So there are movements. We get people who are sensitive, right? We become sensitized. We do things like drags on the sled, right? That doesn't seem to irritate them. Torso's loaded.
Right.
Use the arms. We get them on the bike. We put them in positions. We can get people working. We slow things down. We pull sumo instead of conventional because we get the torso upright. We strict press instead of dynamically loading. There's a whole lot of things we can do to get the input into the system to tell your brain and your body nothing's a threat here. But if you're sitting, let that be a lesson to you that you're going to have to deal with that. And that means that every time you sit, man, you got to address the compromises. Show me, take everything else off the table, then I'll point to your disc.
So what else do you have going on? What's new? What's new in MWAD world?
Where do we start?
Barely anything.
So, we've put the course online. We feel like we can deliver more information. We're really stoked on that. 72 lectures, another 14 videos, 50 photos of people actually moving and us talking about it.
Nice.
500 questions. It's about 11 or 12 hours of content.
Wow.
We just wrapped up our level 2. We're trying to make coach providers. We see that kind of divide problems around the body into 3 categories. Musculoskeletal problems, not like cancer or, diabetes. And the idea here is that we've got we call incomplete mechanics, right? Hey, just don't have full hip range of motion, ankle range. Can't get into pistol, that's incomplete mechanics. Chances are when you run or jump and land, you're going to compensate around that. Well, just as long as you stay slow. You stay slow.
Of course, a long time.
Keep your torso high, Matt. That's all fine.
If I have enough band tension from the top,
you're
I
good.
Can get down there. Almost.
What's that? Accommodating resistance, right? Pistol, accommodating resistance. People don't apply. But then what we're seeing is that a lot of
accommodating assistance.
What people don't realize is that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that need to see an expert, someone who can program. Like, we don't think you're really injured until you really can't do your sport, you can't do your job, or you've had surgery, right? Or like you've herniated a disc, it's something so bad. Otherwise, you're in the domain of you should be able to take a crack at fixing it yourself. So, our level 2 course is coming out. We just wrapped up another book, Waterman 2.0. We're working on,
Waterman?
Waterman. Just
Waterman.
Paddling, surfing mechanics, stand-up mechanics. We got 30 interviews with the world's best paddlers, from Laird Hamilton.
See, I think a lot of people don't realize that that's actually what your background is.
You mean standing in a cold shower ripping up $20 bills?
Yeah, that's what I heard you do.
AKA slalom.
Yeah.
Right now is a good time. You actually see it in the Olympics. This was my life. Two-man canoe. I mean, there's all 8 of us in the world.
Pretty gnarly. And you finished 2nd in the world.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, not in C2, in a different sport.
Oh, okay.
Different whitewater sport.
Whitewater stuff. That's so gnarly. Like, that's something that's so far out of the wheelhouse of me growing up in Louisiana. We don't have...
You have gators, and you do a sport, honestly, that has, like, in order to do your sport, you have knives on your shoes.
With that said, I compete in a sport based out of Scotland, so I can't really blame...
With knives on your shoes. I mean, I don't think people realize that you have to, like, dig your shoes into the ground.
It seems good for your knees.
What we look at is any highly coupled system that's tightly coupled, nothing could go wrong.
No, I mean, you got a lot of force, and you're basically, you like put a ball on the end of a string. You spin your hand really slow, but the string goes real fast at the end where the ball is. Like, this part's your knees and hips. And then you just stop and get it out there.
Yeah, what's good, though, is that if you can keep the feet anchored to the ground.
Well, it's nice, because then you can pull yourself back into the ground to get more speed. That's really what you're doing.
Have you guys ever thought about just, like, ski boots and skis instead?
That'd be silly.
So that, like, we probably all stand to do a little more bodybuilding.
Of course. Everyone loves pipes.
And some of that is just about getting more blood flow in the system and getting more work done that isn't, like, it's low-level work. Like yesterday in our class, I made everyone do 21s with curls.
I love it. But Andy and I have talked about that. For years, for both of us, like a deload week and recovery week, neither of us have ever felt what to do was to sit on the couch. If we ever had a twinge, like something that feels like a little pull or a strain, the way we've always attacked deload weeks for recovery and recovering from small injuries is bodybuilding work. Is let me get in and just do 100 squats with the barbell.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. A lot of people, hey, I squat heavy on Monday, Thursday, or speed squat, right? I'm following the West Side Cube.
Yeah, right.
Right. Doesn't matter. But no one squats any other time.
Yeah.
Right? And so what you're seeing is that, you're hitting these really high things, and then you're not keeping the engine running a little bit. I think you can benefit a lot by grab the barbell and squat.
Do 100 reps. Do 100 reps.
Are you worried?
Just a barbell.
You are so weak that you're worried that, 5 sets of 10 with a barbell as part of your warm-up for bench day.
It's going to make you weaker.
Then you have some problems in your strength. It's okay to be a strong, well-conditioned athlete, but just putting those, greasing that groove every day, I guarantee you, if we look at your program, you're not squatting every day. Squat every day. I mean, who's that coach? He's like, if something's important, do it every day. It's John Wooden.
Yeah.
Stupid.
What does he know? How does Kelly run his neighborhood weekly squat challenge?
That's
a good question.
Welcome to the Terralinda Barbell Club. So we do 2 things. One is that we just have a regular staying day with the kids, right? So the kids come over. It's always around a front squat-like activity. So we don't overhead squat. We'll overhead squat with PVC pipes, hands behind back, just to force upright torso. But we front squat, front squat, front squat, front squat.
And why not? Why wouldn't you front squat with kids that age, this developing age? You will keep a much more upright torso, and it's so much safer and easier for a learning athlete to dump weight on a front squat than it is from the back.
Do I want my kids to have a strong posterior chain? Sure.
Yeah, of course.
But being able to keep your torso upright and express full range of motion in the ankle and the hips, I mean, you've got a front squat.
Yep.
And what I find is the people who have brutally strong back squats usually are missing some range, right?
Yeah.
You should be able to do both. I mean, we're not saying it's front squatting better than back squatting with our kids. And I try to do some kind of different variation. Sometimes we run and squat. Sometimes we swing and squat. Sometimes I'm just like, all right, kids, like my daughter Georgia, she'll get the 20-kilo bar, and we do 1 squat every 15 seconds. And she's got to stay in the front rack shape until she dies. And she's like, Dad, I'm dying. I'm like, you're not dead yet, kid. And then she, when she's like, I'm done, she puts it down. I'm like, great, 2 more.
Dying don't hurt.
2 more of those. And and she's like, no, right? And by the time we the kids are on the neighborhood are on a lot of steroids.
Oh, easily.
So Prelipin's chart works really well for us. And the idea here is that it's exposure. And then for our squat club for men, the rule is no cardio, no abs. You can do that in the secrecy and privacy of your own home.
No. It's cloaked in darkness
and shame.
And
But we choose a lift, and we just hit the lift. And you know, it's informal. We do it about 7:30, so kids are gone to sleep, or 8 o'clock. The guys come over, they're not running, and then we just lift for an hour and go home.
All right, last question.
And that's all Matt Vincent. Matt Vincent one time was interviewed and said, and this is important, someone asked him, how do you get really strong? And you said, squat
once a week, moderately heavy for the next decade. Let's sort it out.
And we were really like, well, that's a great idea.
All right, I got 2 questions. So this one quick. Well, this isn't a quick one. The last one will be. Post-brain surgery, 5 months today. This is a guy we deal with a lot.
Awesome.
Matt Russell is an awesome guy. His neck's a bit tighter than he'd like. Tips for increasing mobility, blood flow to the area.
Through his brain?
Well, I guess his neck's all locked up, I'm sure, from being stuck in different contraptions.
Yeah, for sure. What I would say, first and foremost, is, you know, if you're cleared from your physio, right, you've got tissue tolerance, the first thing that I'd want to do is rebuild some basic aerobic function. And that doesn't mean pushing high pressures. That means just like you need to be hot and sweaty a lot. And that's going to be the easiest way to blow.
That makes sense. So just basically like the workouts like we did yesterday. Just go move for an hour. Go walk around. Like even just go walk around your neighborhood for an hour.
Carries.
Yeah.
Non-threatening positions. Some of this stuff is we need to tell our brains nothing's threatened here. Go be active for an hour. Go put on a weight vest and go for a hike.
And that's, you know, it's stuff like that. Like what you just said. When you're coming back from something like brain surgery, like this is major shit. This isn't having your knee scoped, getting ready for a season. We're talking about surviving. Like, there's no timeline. You don't have a deadline of when you need to be prepared. So just start preparing slow and keep making that steady progress the whole time.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of times the stiffness is your nervous system still trying to protect itself. And one of the things we're trying to do is whisper to the nervous system, desensitize those tissues, get on a softer ball, right? Have someone scrape your neck. Get on a ball on the ground, so you know, like a squishier ball, and you know, spend some time just breathing in. Put those tissues under tension. Do some breathing work there. You know, desensitize those areas because they've gotten protectively stiff to try to protect your cranium. Right. That's really reasonable. So one is I would have a daily soft tissue work practice. I wouldn't ever be bruised back there, but I'd just be like, hey, I got a noodle on this, just like I'm brushing my teeth. I'd work on my T-spine to improve the carriage from my head, and then I would really prioritize, not necessarily pushing huge blood pressures, right, but show me you can stand those Category 1 controlled movements. I'd front squat, nothing where my neck's cranking around. I would goblet squat, and I'd start challenging my neck in the fundamentals of human position. Yeah. And if holding a plank doesn't hurt, you know, let's get you into a plank first. If you can start doing ring rows, let's do ring rows. I mean, the point is we need to start getting movement from shoulder into trunk, and that is how we're going to start to control and modulate how your neck feels. Bigger conversation about what is your physical practice. You know, I was just hanging out with Levi Leipheimer. We were doing a project for he's a cyclist,
professional cyclist,
Tour de France podium guy. Yeah, supreme human being. And one of the things that, you know, he said in one of our talks is like, hey, look, you know, people are taking their day off before they compete. Wrong.
Yeah, I like to do something the day before. I'm talking just a minimal. I like day before if I can, right? If I didn't just get stuck in an airplane and just be trashed. Best case scenario is if I can travel somewhere and then have a day before I compete. The day before I compete, I want to wake up to CNS. I want to warm up. I want to break a sweat. I want to stretch the same way I would on game day.
That's right.
But then not compete.
That's right.
That's it.
And I think what we're not seeing around the physical practice is that, you know, we turn the diesel off, and it's hard to cold start that thing again, right? We're going to need, you know, it's the big truck engine. It's better to keep it idling a little bit every day. So what we want people to get into is the practice of what we say is, you know, be consistent, not heroic. But there is some input. So I come out, you know, I have a family, crazy business, right? Some days my training I'm like, I'm not going to train today because I'm going to have dinner with my family. And
right. There's other priorities.
I just can't do it. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to do my breathing or I'll jump in the pool and do some pool stuff. I'm always thinking there's always input to be had. Sometimes the frying pan is very hot and I'll I won't blow myself. I'll blow myself out. And
I'll cook hot. Level 99.
That's level 99. And the idea here is, there is always input you have. I think we see sometimes, I have my training days and then total rest days. There is no such thing. You need to be in constant motion.
And don't get so caught up in the idea that you've got this workout that, well, shit, I didn't have an hour, so I may as well not do anything. If you've got 5 minutes, go do something.
You can't swing 50 kettlebell swings before dinner? Guarantee you can.
It's something.
Yeah, and really, that's the idea. And especially if you're a strength athlete, I'd be hitting these shapes all the time. Like if there was an old Russian model where they did 300 glute ham sit-ups. It's some of these rumors, not glute ham sit-ups, glute ham raises.
Yeah. Actual
glute hams. And for months in the gym, I would just walk past it and be like, "There's the glute ham machine."
We'll do 5.
I did 5.
Yeah.
And some of it was I was like, "Holy crap!" It just dealt with the slow eccentric loading, which just kept me from getting stiff.
Right.
And I think that's modern man versus paleo caveman. You know what I mean? The guy walked. Wasn't it Thor walked the log? Right?
Yeah.
One extra step.
Yep.
1,000 years ago, the guy walked one less step, drinking goat blood and milk, and the point is,
same diet.
Human beings, I think we put ourselves under much higher loads these days.
Sure.
Under shorter times, and then we don't do enough movement. So it's not like we can't do it, not that we can't handle that, but we just need to make sure that we're also doing some other movements because the training density is so high.
Right.
Because we know how to optimize that, but you need to move more. Simple.
So another question that I had for recovery, what's your thought on trigger point stuff and dry needling?
In California, physical therapists are not allowed to dry needle.
Really?
Nope. It's biomedical acupuncture
Interesting.
is controlled by the needle mafia.
Well, in the Wild West world that I live in, anyone's allowed to.
I think dry needling is amazing. Sue Falsone is a physio. She was the first woman head athletic trainer in any professional sports ever with the Dodgers. She used to be vice president of Exos, which was athletes performance under Verstegen. She is a baller. She has a dry needling course. And if you look up Sue Falsone, Falsone, she, I think it's if I was licensed, I would use it as a way of breaking spasm.
Right.
When athletes are overworked or, I could literally turn things off with a needle.
Yep.
Very fast. We use electricity in the H wave. But this is direct needling in. I think, like everything, people overdo everything. You don't need to get dry needled every day. You don't need to get cupped every day. You don't need to, get scraped every day. It's another powerful tool. It's a great tool to get to the heart of the matter. We can, Duffin's pain pill is great.
Yep.
That constant localized ischemia, constant big pressure, which we have been advocating for to break spasm forever, is a longer path to breaking that spasm. The needle is
it's amazing. But the dry needling work I've had, I find the diminishing returns on it.
I think this brings up a bigger conversation about what is your physical practice. I was just hanging out with Levi Leipheimer. We were doing a project for he's a cyclist.
Professional cyclist.
Tour de France podium guy.
Yeah.
Supreme human being. And one of the things that, he said in one of our talks is hey, look, people are taking their day off before they compete. Wrong.
Yeah, I like to do something the day before. I'm talking just a minimal. I like day before if I can, right? If I didn't just get stuck in an airplane and just be trashed. Best case scenario is if I can travel somewhere and then have a day before I compete. The day before I compete, I want to wake up to CNS. I want to warm up. I want to break a sweat. I want to stretch the same way I would on game day.
That's right.
But then not compete.
That's right.
That's it.
And I think what we're not seeing around the physical practice is that, we turn the diesel off, and it's hard to cold start that thing again, right? We're going to need, it's the big truck engine. It's better to keep it idling a little bit every day. So what we want people to get into is the practice of what we say is, be consistent, not heroic. But there is some input. So I come out, I have a family, crazy business, right? Some days my training I'm like, I'm not going to train today because I'm going to have dinner with my family. And
right. There's
it doesn't happen. I just can't do
it.
But it doesn't mean I'm not going to do my breathing or I'll jump in the pool and do some pool stuff. I'm always thinking there's always input to be had. Sometimes the frying pan is very hot and I'll blow I won't blow myself. I'll blow myself out. And you know,
I'll cook hot. Level 99.
That's level 99. And the idea here is, there is always input to have. I think we see sometimes. I have my training days and then total rest days. There is no such thing. You need to be in constant motion.
And don't get so caught up in the idea that you've got this workout that, well, shit, I didn't have an hour, so I may as well not do anything. If you've got 5 minutes, go do something.
You can't swing 50 kettlebell swings before dinner? Guarantee you can't.
It's something.
Yeah, and really that's the idea. And especially if you're a strength athlete, I'd be hitting these shapes all the time. Like if there was an old Russian model where they did 300 glute ham sit-ups. It's some of these rumors, not glute ham sit-ups, glute ham raises. Yeah. Actual glute hams. And for months in the gym, I would just walk past it and be like, "There's the glute ham machine.
I'm gonna do 5."
I did 5. Yeah. And some of it was I was like, "Holy crap!" It just dealt with the slow eccentric loading, which just kept me from getting stiff.
Right.
And I think that's modern man versus paleo caveman. You know what I mean? The guy walked, wasn't it Thor walked the log? Right?
Yeah.
One extra step.
Yep.
1,000 years ago, the guy walked one less step, drinking goat blood and milk. And the point is,
same diet.
Human beings, I think we put ourselves under much higher loads these days.
Sure.
Under shorter times. And then we don't do enough movement. So it's not like we can't do it. Not that we can't handle that. But we just need to make sure that we're also doing some other movements because the training density is so high.
Right.
Because we know how to optimize that. But you need to move more. Simple.
So another question that I had for recovery. What's your thought on trigger point stuff and dry needling?
In California, physical therapists are not allowed to dry needle.
Really?
Nope. It's biomedical acupuncture is controlled by the needle mafia.
Well, in the Wild West world that I live in, anyone's allowed to.
I think dry needling is amazing. Sue Falsone is a physio. She was the first woman head athletic trainer in any professional sports ever with the Dodgers. She used to be vice president of Exos, which was athletes performance under Verstegen. She is a baller. She has a dry needling course. And if you look up Sue Falsone, Falsone, she, I think it's if I was licensed, I would use it as a way of breaking spasm.
Right.
When athletes are overworked or, I could literally turn things off with a needle.
Yep.
Very fast. We use electricity in the H wave, but this is direct needling in. I think like everything. People overdo everything. You don't need to get dry needled every day. You don't need to get cupped every day. You don't need to, get scraped every day. It's another powerful tool. It's a great tool to get to the heart of the matter. We can, Duffin's pain pill is great.
Yep.
That constant localized ischemia, constant big pressure, which we have been advocating for to break spasm forever, is a longer path to breaking that spasm. The needle literally is just turns off.
It's amazing. But the dry needling work I've had, I find the diminishing returns on it, unless it's not an everyday.
No.
You need all different levels. I've always felt, recovery, mobility, tissue addressing, I've got different levels of it. I have, if everything's cool, like me and the foam roller and lacrosse ball,
it's enough.
And and a kettlebell sleeve, are going to be plenty.
Yep.
But so now I'm doing that every day. Something slipped up and I jacked something up during training.
Or I just overdid it.
Yep.
Too much volume.
Yep. Did something, pissed something off.
Yeah.
That's massage therapist, chiropractor.
Great.
Still have something the next level past that, that's dry needling. It's still an invasive thing. I don't want to do that all the time.
What you can think of is, hey, how do I prep the nervous system?
Right.
Right? I'm a huge proponent of what the guys are doing at XPT Life. Laird Hamilton, Brian McKenzie, they modified the original teachings of Wim Hof, which is a great program to jump in. It's about whispering to your nervous system. Get your nervous system to turn itself off, because what we see is that you're breathing crappy all the time, you're drinking 17 cups of coffee, you're sleeping like crap, you're just winding your sympathetic nervous system up all the time, and that has huge implications on the background ready state and tone. So one thing is we're always looking at, hey, instead of magically, which one of these modalities am I going to do that's going to optimize my secret school program? These things fall into a bucket. Do you know how to chill out? Yes or no? Like the gut smash you can do before you go to bed, or jumping in the hot tub, or those are about down regulation. How can I turn my body off to chill? right? And some states that, we have a lot of athletes who use THC, a little dose of THC to go to sleep.
What?
It's either that or Ambien, and they choose THC. But that's still about nervous system. I mean, that is a performance-enhancing drug. Sorry, Nick Diaz. And because if you sleep better and you turn it off, I mean, that's a big deal. Second piece here is, a lot of the problems that we see as athletes have are perfusion problems. I get blood flow that is not optimized on a little tendon insertion. That's why we warm up. That's why we take massive amounts of reps. That's why I, as an older guy who's not a strength athlete, when I do a strength day, I will do something in the 3 minutes I'm resting. I'll keep moving. Like, I'll jump on the bike for 3 minutes before I squat. And yeah, I may squat a little less, but not really. What ends up happening is that my tissues are so pumped full of blood that I don't run into those problems. So So if you suddenly see scraping or voodoo floss, occlusion, Mark Pro, those are all perfusion related issues, right? Trigger point suddenly ends up being, hey, aspects of the contractile features of my musculature, I've got areas of high tonicity, I've got trigger point, I bang the bar off my shin, right? There's something. Trigger point's a way of telling the nervous system to release that kind of wound up section. I mean, if the trigger point is like this in the middle of the muscle, the muscle isn't going to work. Trigger point allows me to release, get that undone, and address that.
And then start getting back to getting blood flow to it.
So, what we're seeing is a lot of these things end up bucketing into categories where, again, I'm solving nervous system readiness, I'm solving how well my fascia slides, I'm solving how well my tissues are perfused. One of the biggest outcomes we've had is with a lot of our professional baseball guys, I just have them do a whole bunch of band press downs before they throw. Now their elbows are full of blood, and when they go, God!
And that's such a hard area. I mean, that's why you get golfer's elbow, tennis elbows, because those tendons
lack
and
of range
just don't get any blood.
That's right, lack of range, and you don't perfuse them before you smoke them. Right. You do 3 pull. Before I do any pressing, there are a lot of band press downs.
Horizontal pull, horizontal push. That's what I said.
I'm saying you just need a lot of pushing. And that's one of the reasons that, like, hey, we finish sometimes just, let's get this thing engorged with blood. I mean, Dimmel deadlifts, 10 sets of 10. It's about putting as much blood into the system as you can. I mean, 135, yeah, sure, you're going to do a little eccentric work.
It'll be fun.
But make it with a barbell and just load that tissue so you can get ahead. Then these things don't have to become like I'm memorizing some secret, language. It's just that, hey, this is a perfusion problem. This is, but if you're training right, it takes a lot less maintenance.
Right.
The course that we teach I teach regularly at our gym still, and I teach just a conditioning class, and I call it skilled conditioning. And what we do in that conditioning is touch all the positions that my athletes are going to use later in the week. During metabolic load, put them under a little breathing hard, but all we do is practice getting into shape. So I don't care if you win pull-ups. By the way, pull-ups are not a sport. Hashtag. The idea is you should be doing pull-ups so that your overhead positioning is better when you throw or block the net. Yep. People are just, it's all about intensity. I mean, if you go onto Instagram, it's obviously right now it's about drinking vodka, eating, hamburgers without buns.
I'm not going to let you badmouth, Jackie. I'm not going to let that happen.
And Olympic lifting. Back on my shit, Jackie 585.
All right, thank you guys for watching. We're going to do one quick thing here. Kelly gets to say one word about the next handful of topics. Suicide Squad. That's your word.
I don't get that time back.
No, that's it.
That's how I feel. I could have watched women's gymnastics more.
Harry Potter.
Important for my daughters. They love Harry Potter. And it's a gateway to reading, so I look at Harry Potter as a gateway drug. Harry Potter gateway drug.
Trampoline in the Olympics.
That one's tricky. Having had a trampoline, I really appreciate how tough it is. But this is. I can't say one word. I'm gonna say this. I paddled on the national team. They used to take 5 boats to the Olympics. Right. And that was pretty amazing. Like, if you were on the team, you went to the Olympics. Then there were too many athletes in the Olympics, and so they started cutting. So now, like, sometimes a team will only get 1 person. Right. So you could have the top 3 boats in the world, but you only get to take 1, or maybe you get to take 2, but that third person who's the best in the world just doesn't get to go. I think we need to have an honest conversation with ourselves about what we value as an Olympic sport. And even if they're traditional sporting traditions, like shooting should be in the Olympics. Yep. It's one of our
oldest things.
Gaming, how we hunted, like those competitions. Do we need to have horse trotting?
Horse dancing.
Is it very difficult? Yes. 3-day eventing? Hell yes. That's an amazing sport. So What's up, ladies? So the issue is, so some of these sports I think we should cull down just because we don't see the participation.
Right. Another topic? Eames Lounge.
The Eames Lounge? What do you mean, like an Eames chair? Look, Eames stood up to work. They developed that material to prevent like pressure ulcers. I'm not watching you. And the issue is you can't design a better chair because you're not designed to sit on your hamstrings.
Such a good chair.
Hey, that's not appropriate.
It's basically the first zero-G chair.
Have you seen the movie WALL-E?
No.
Basically, human beings just float around in lounge chairs and drink big gulps. That's what it's a little bit about.
It's a good looking chair, though.
But look, lay down. Lay down on the couch.
Just lay down.
Let's lay down.
Take a nap.
Quit it.
All right. Thank you guys for hanging out, and we'll see you soon.